So we've had to switch the program around a little bit. And so we are joined with Hannah, who runs, well, I've got a slide for you, and this time I'll even try and share the right one.
Hi.
Let's see if I'm sharing the right one. I'm sharing the right one. There we go.
Oh
Um,
God.
she's on TikTok,
Thank you.
Thriving with Hannah. It used to be called Hannah Home Educates on TikTok, right?
Yeah.
And you've been quite an important voice in just raising awareness, and I'm sure you've come in for a lot of hate as well because there's a lot of naysayers out there. So um, I think let's start first things first. How did you start home educating? What was behind that for you?
Yeah. So I used to work in behavior management when I was very young. I started when I was 19, or maybe even 18. And it was at a unit for children, teenagers who had got expelled from school, and then they got expelled from the pupil referral unit that they'd gone to after that. So it was a very small unit, and these kids, they had very, very difficult home lives, as you can imagine. And it was completely bizarre walking in on the first day. The lady looked me up and down, and I'd sort of dressed for school, like little heels and what you think you should wear when you're working in a school. And she said, "Have you got trainers?" And I said, "No." And she said, "Well, you're going to need them because you're going to need to run." And I thought she was joking, and she wasn't joking. It was a very lively unit, but what I noticed was the amount of respect and really love that those kids got from the staff there was making a huge difference to them. These were children who, they weren't trusted at all. The police would wait outside and, want to pat them down and stuff after school. It was really quite heartbreaking, even though it was kind of valid. And they just weren't trusted or really cared for anywhere else. And so I noticed that made a huge difference to them, that they were actually engaging for the first time in their lives at 14, 15. And so I thought, hang on, this is working so well, and the school environment didn't work, the pupil referral unit environment didn't work, and I wanted that for my kids. And I also was kind of recognizing that at mainstream that really wasn't happening for children, and not because of teachers want, I think a lot of teachers want to give that care, but if I had 30 children, there's no way I could parent them well, and I don't think that teachers can necessarily care for 30 children optimally, because there's too many of them. And so, yeah, and then I got pregnant at 20, so not long after. And we decided that, we looked at this tiny little school, and I remember it was fine. But I remember them saying, the boys do football and the girls do netball. And that was a moment for me where I thought, okay, hang on a second. I was 20, or whatever it was, 2010 or something. And so we tried we started home educating, as in we never sent her to nursery, Esme, we never sent her to preschool. And I remember realizing that we'd missed the deadline for applying for a reception place. I was in a cafe and it was on the back of the toilet door that the deadline had passed. And I thought, well, that's that then. We didn't ever intend to apply, but it was really like, oh, that's the moment where this is definitely happening. And then we realized so many people were doing it. I think the increase in Facebook groups really helped. I met my local friends on Facebook groups. We had picnics and play dates and stuff, and went from there. And then Ira came along and Elfie came along, and never thought for a second that they were going to school. And so, yeah. And then 14 and a half years later, and still somehow going, basically. Yeah, loving it.
Uh, I think the thing that I would like to know, and if I would like to know it, I'm sure others would like, but how did you come to set up your channel and decide to start talking about home education there?
Sure. So I think I always blogged from when Esme was a baby. And so just naturally, I remember it was kind of a humorous blog. I used to blog about we had a terrible honeymoon. It was disastrous. And I blogged about that. And it was kind of just life stuff. Then naturally, as we started home educating, it became more about that. And then people asked about, oh, you kind of gentle parent. So there was that. And then I think it was 2020 I think it was 2020, maybe in 2019, that we were doing silly dances on TikTok. We just discovered TikTok. I think it had just changed over from Musically. And I just started talking about home ed. And the way that TikTok was at the time is that it was still a lot of dances and a lot of lip syncing trends. And it just seemed to appeal to people that they could access information, but in an entertaining way.
Yeah.
And so people started asking questions, and then and I was so passionate about it. I loved talking about it. And at the time, I think Facebook groups and things are increasing now. We've got so much more online information, but back then there was some. But I think, you know, if you're hanging out on TikTok and it's on TikTok, that's convenient for people. And the same with Instagram. You know, we went previously to that. I was doing YouTube and Instagram and stuff. So pretty much because I was a parent who needed to earn online, in order to help home educate the kids, and I didn't really have many other options. I did cleaning, you know, up until I was 38 weeks pregnant with my third. It was, you know, it was a big juggle. You know what it's like trying to work and home educate. And so I've just sort of weaved through that, and it's just developed as it's happened according to what I'm doing with the kids. And yeah, it's a bumpy ride. I've made a lot of mistakes, and when you're online, you make them publicly, and it can be really hard. And there is almost no grace for making mistakes in public, and understandably, especially with things as important as home ed. So it can be very, very difficult. Obviously, there's a huge increase in people setting. I see them all the time now because it's my For You page on TikTok. You know, this is what a home ed day looks like, and here's some resources and stuff. And honestly, I do worry for people who are doing that, just because it can be a very tricky subject to navigate, as anything can with our kids, because it's such a sensitive subject. And there's so many stereotypes and so much worry and fear and misinformation, and obviously the government's really helping out with that. And so it's a bumpy ride, as you know, from running your own groups and advocacy and things like that.
Yeah, I must say I've enjoyed some of the more humorous ones, and I've even had some of my kids share them with me.
Oh,
So
great.
it's
Oh, that's
always
cool.
quite
Yeah,
quite
well,
interesting when that happens. And what did I want to ask you about now? There was something. Oh, with my brain. We've been at this like more than half. We're over the halfway mark now at least, but
you
since
need a nap.
9 a.m.
Yeah,
and we've had to stick to being just on YouTube because we couldn't make the live work to both. So
this is
you know
okay.
the techie issues and all of that.
Yeah, always.
Um, yeah, but you know, obviously there's, as you said, you know, there's a lot of responsibility. Simon Squibb also said, you know, the more
Yeah.
well known you are, the
Oh
more,
my
you know,
gosh.
you've got
Yeah.
to be responsible. And you know, people can be quite cruel and honest, and um,
Yeah.
I'm sure you also hear a lot of sort of stuff that's very prejudicial, you know, very prejudiced as well against home education. Now, I don't know
Yeah.
if you want to share any of those
Yeah, I'm sure.
us.
I think it is a very tricky one. Something I've noticed, particularly since the bill has come into play, this most recently, you know, the CWS bill, is that it is very hard. And I think you, by the way, you've done an amazing job at setting up this live. When I saw who was on it, you know, there are so many different people who talk about home education. And the thing is, we all have home ed in common. We're all passionate about that, but we're still very different people politically, socially, economically. You know, it's the spectrum for home ed is obviously completely huge. So it is very tricky to get everyone on board. And I mean, about home ed, I've heard everything you could possibly come up with, and some that I would never have thought of as well. I've never spoken about this online, but I was reported to social services. You know, people don't stop in the comment section. We had a visit. We went through that whole thing. I chose not to talk. I'm actually upset. We chose not to talk about that because ultimately, you know, I don't in real time necessarily share what my kids are doing. When I talk about groups, I always slightly change the day or exactly what the group is, just for their privacy. But people are absolutely brutal, and you know, trolling doesn't end online.
Yeah.
Hopefully, obviously, the social worker was like, this is an absolute joke, and she was lovely. Luckily, I always feel like if you have more than one home ed child, you've probably got like the one who you want to talk if people ask you about home ed.
And the other
So,
one, you're just like, maybe you should go work quietly in your room right
well,
now.
there was a moment where she was talking. I had my mum with me for support, and the social worker was talking to my 12-year-old, the middle one, who's, you know, like an adult. She practically raises herself, and she was saying, the social worker said, what do you want to do when you're older, you know, typical question. And she said, well, you know, I'm not sure between zoology or paleontology or ecology. And she was kind of, you know, it sounded like I'd prepped her, but I really hadn't. And then so she was saying that, and in the next moment, my oldest and my youngest were outside, and my youngest body slammed my teenager to the floor. So it was just this moment where I was like, oh my God, but you know, that's normal life, isn't it? And
Yes, and
it is what it
hopefully
is.
social workers have got that knowledge of what's normal.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah,
And my little one doesn't sit still for 2 seconds. I was actually doing like a photo of a sort of day in the home ed life, and it's quite rare, but we were sitting down with workbooks this morning. And it was quite funny because I went to take a photo. My 10-year-old is down the end of the garden scooping up handfuls of gravel. The other two are getting on fine, but she, give her a workbook and a chair, and she's pretty immediately quite unhappy, which is fair enough. So yeah, I think it's just normal life, and it looks different for everyone.
yeah. I do
And
hope you ignore some of those trolls as well and just like
yeah,
jog on.
yeah, it's I do try, and I think I got to a fairly good place. It's up and down, it depends on your mood and
Yeah,
where you are in your cycle, to be honest, as well. If I'm PMS and someone, I think I've seen some people very obviously and very deliberately try to take advantage of home education, and use it, without care for the community, without care for the people
yeah,
who they're talking to. And I've seen that be very blatant. And so I think that when it feels like you're being put in the same box as that, that hurts.
yeah. Like
Because
you're
I do
taking your
care.
children out because you don't want to pay school fines, and then you're going to put them back in again, and
Yeah, for
that kind
sure.
of thing.
For
Yeah,
sure. And to be honest, some of the hardest stuff comes from other home educators, because, we all have different opinions about how we're supposed to approach everything. And like I said, you make a mistake in public, like that has ramifications. It has been really cool seeing a lot of people come together and support different movements, and kind of understand that we're all really trying our best, and it is very difficult. If we knew what was going to stop this bill, we would all do it.
yeah,
So it's just about pitching
yeah.
in
I
wherever
mean,
we
we've
can.
been told that what we're doing is embarrassing. That the protests that we're trying to do, that it's we're being ridiculous and that kind of thing.
Yeah,
But the thing is, I would rather do something than sit and wait and let it just happen.
100%.
And I don't have to do this. My children are older. It's not going to affect me, but I do it because it's the right thing to do,
Yeah,
to
yeah,
defend this.
yeah,
And I want that. I want the rights to exist for my grandchildren as well. And we value what you do, and it's what you're doing is very important. And
that's really
you
kind.
do have a lot of us behind you.
Thank you.
And just, I think, remind yourself. And if you need a nice little supportive um, group hug, sometimes just let us know. We can always arrange it. I'm
So,
just looking in the comments. Yes, somebody said that the hardest comments come from, yeah, other home educators, and that's certainly what we found with our efforts, trying to find out what is going to work to stop this bill. What we're trying everything.
I
And
wonder if there's. It's interesting that you said about the protest being embarrassing. I do hear people online saying, you're overreacting and things, and I do wonder if that is a self-protective thing. They want to believe this is never going to happen, and they want to believe that they're never going to be affected. And I'll be completely honest, and this is very hard to get across online without sounding. Well, you'll get it now.
yeah,
You know, it's not going to affect my children, because
mm,
I can make home education look however I want.
mm,
I can get support. I could pay lawyers. My kids could, I could buy a whole bunch of CGP workbooks and stuck them up in the corner. They go to groups. It's a very privileged life my kids have got, and so I know that I'm probably one of the very, very lucky people for whom, if we did have a visit, hopefully it would be all right. Hopefully. There's always the argument that they kind of want to take down people who are in the public a little
yeah,
bit more, but you know. But what I'm really worried about is there are so many people who are providing an amazing home education on a very low income. They're minority families. They might, have gay parents. There's so many different things that those visits are. Those people are not, informed in trauma or neurodiversity, and so there are a lot of families who those people are going to really suffer. And to see other people basically say, well, I'm probably going to be all right, so I'm not that bothered, I find
yeah,
that really, really
yeah,
frustrating, especially when they benefit from so much of the support that the home ed community provides. There's so many people who, like yourself, you don't need to be doing this,
yeah.
but put so much time and effort in. And I
Well,
just think, yeah.
Yeah, we fight for the rights of those that are in the most vulnerable positions because we have to, that has to be our starting point.
Yeah.
We can't turn a blind eye to that. And you've just been getting a lot of love in the comments in on the YouTube
Oh, I can't see. I
stream.
wish I
So
could see.
it says you're great, Hannah, you're brilliant, Hannah, so inspiring,
That's
and
very
your
sweet. Thank you.
videos, you do a great job. And Jade said she really appreciates your battle. It's
Thank
not
you.
easy.
I
And
appreciate that. And I do want to say, I will definitely let you down. Unfortunately, that is something I can guarantee. Accidentally,
it's
I'm
kind
going
of
to say
human
something.
nature. It's kind of just in
Yeah.
human nature, you know. But
Yeah.
you know, the thing is, there are some of us here that you can always come if you want to run anything by any of us to check.
That has been
Um,
amazing, actually, being able
that
to say
that
to you
would
the other
be,
day.
we'd be
Yeah.
more than happy to help with that. And yeah, I think Alison wanted to ask you something, and then we need to give way for Mark.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Hi, Hannah.
Hey.
We've met many times on Instagram.
Yes. Yeah. How are you?
So my offer still stands. Let's get together and sort something out. You know,
Brilliant.
because you know you've got another influencer, etc. And I'm also in touch with Simon Squibb's wife. So
Oh, Helen.
maybe
Yeah.
we can put something together between us. And also we need to push the little car, the little canary
Back
yellow
to school,
car
school.
that's
Yeah,
going
so-
around.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Whose car is that?
Mine.
Well,
Is
it is
it?
now. Yeah, it is
Legend. I
now.
was like, someone's
It's had
really
a
committed.
journey.
It was given to I'd say it's mine. It's not really mine, it's the community's, but it was given to me by the people that got it wrapped, and they'd driven it round Parliament Square and stuff, and then they couldn't continue any kind of campaign, so they said that they thought that I was probably the best person to take it forward. So I've got a small team of volunteers driving it, but I need some more volunteers, and we need to push it a bit more.
And we're trying to get something started around it where you get your picture taken, you know, share photos if you see it.
Yeah,
that kind of thing.
That would be brilliant.
Yeah, so I'll talk to you outside of here about that. Okay.
Yeah.
But it's lovely to see you. And you know, the comment about people saying I'm all right, I will be okay. I haven't home educated for 8 years.
Wow.
And here I am.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I want my grandchildren and I want my friends' children, like Chloe's children, to be able to be home educated.
Yeah.
And I don't. There's a lot of burying heads in sand since COVID. I think COVID's been a real game changer with some people, and people that used to volunteer and used to make some effort and used to contribute have stopped doing so. And we need to get that feeling back. We need to feel much more like a community again. We need to be supporting each other, and we need to not be selfish about it.
Yeah, we need a proper unity really around these issues. Anyway, I'm going to remove your spotlight there, Alison, and I'm going to remove yours too, Megan. Thank you for joining us, and I know you're so much off doing something or the other with playing Mum's Taxi or something.
Yeah, I've got to take my kid to a birthday party with about 50 school children. So my ghost child is
good fun.
Yeah, exactly.
Have wonderful. Have a
thank
lovely
you so
time.
much for having me, and
thank you for joining us today. I appreciate it so much.